1.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business through to the consumer, and how to go about finding an investor if that's important to you. The bottom line is Tracy and I have been doing this a long time. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've done some good things, and we'd love to help smooth out and accelerate your road to success here. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. Tracy?
Thanks, Bruce. So what Bruce means by commercial operations is sales, marketing, trade marketing, managing distributors, managing agencies, acquisitions, divestitures. And so those are the kinds of topics that we experience that we share with our audience. In addition to those topics that we cover on our podcast, we also interview our friends and colleagues, brand founders in the CPG industry, where they share their experiences, expertise, and also provide insights. So our goal really is to help small, emerging, and challenger brands with the types of experiences that we've had so that maybe they can avoid some of the mistakes that we have made throughout our careers. So Bruce, tell our audience today what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, today is a big topic. We're going to talk about the line review, what it is, how to get ready, but what it really is a real important date in the life of a small, emerging, or challenger brand. It's kind of how the paper gets graded. But Tracy, why don't you take a moment and tell the group officially what a line review is and how you would describe it? You've led more of these than I have.
No problem. Thanks, Bruce. So really, as Bruce said, it's time for you to have your paper graded. This is a time of the year where buyers will evaluate their category. And then also, most importantly to our audience, is they're going to evaluate your brand to see how you're performing, whether you actually did what you said you were going to do during the year from the last review, and really to see if your brand is performing, meeting those hurdles, as well as assisting in growing the buyer's category, which is the most important thing. Bruce, what would you add there?
I think that's pretty good there, Tracy. So some of the potential outcomes that come from this line review meeting, you'll find out, as Tracy said, the first thing they'll do is, did you do what you said you were going to do? We've talked about in the past the importance of your scorecard. So right away, they'll talk about things like, are you shipping accurately? Are your orders full? Are they on time? Is your bill of lading and all your paperwork, is that stuff accurate? Because when that stuff starts falling apart and they're wasting time either contacting you or correcting that, not a great day at the office. So here's some of the other potential outcomes that'll come out of your line review. They can talk about expanding distribution. So Tracy and I have talked a lot about going in and getting, I'm making up a number, 250 store test to see if it sells, to see if you can work the kinks out, get your shipping down, et cetera, et cetera. They could reduce distribution. If you went too big, too fast, they might pull you down to the, a couple hundred stores where you're really selling well. Or if it's been really bad, they might bring up the discontinuation discussion. And Tracy's talked about that several times, and we might do an episode just on this. But that's when they'll start talking about markdowns and returns, and that is a really bad and expensive day. The next thing they'll do is they'll review the promotional performance of your brand and the spend. So when we did this promotion, how did it work? Did it work the way we both thought it would? Did it overperform, underperform? A key here is if there's a promotion that you did that did not work, be prepared to talk about why it did not work and the changes you would recommend. There are very few brands, and the number might actually be zero, that can get away with spending zero money on trade support. So what you really want to talk about is We're still here to drive the business and support my business at you, this individual retailer, but I can't do that again as we did it last year. It did not work. So collectively, let's talk about some changes to the program so I can continue to invest in my business here with you. It just can't be that way. Lastly, is talk about the category. As Tracy said, and it's paramount, these buyers all care much more about their category performance than your brand. If your brand is helping drive the category, they're happy. If it's neutral, they're in the middle, because cutting in a new brand is just one more thing they have to keep track of. So if it doesn't add to the category performance, if you said, Bruce, which is it? Don't be wishy-washy. I'd say an even performance is a loss for the retailer. So you got to get going. And if you're pulling the category down, you need to start taking and talking about actions that you're going to do to get out of that kind of penalty box there. But talk about the category. What innovation do you see coming? Are there rulings or regulations that are changing? If you have innovation, this is a good time to bring it up, but
Right.
show and communicate that you are a resource of knowledge about the category. We'll talk about this a bit more in a few minutes. Tracy, what would you add here?
Yeah, you mentioned a great thing, Bruce, and that was the scorecard. And two things that we probably need to mention. One is, and so our audience today can understand the vernacular, and what buyers are going to also look at is your fill rate. And what that means is they ordered 100 cases and you shipped them 100 cases, your fill rate's 100%. If you shipped them 90 cases, 95, usually the threshold is 90 to 95%. You want to have your fill rate. The other thing they're going to look at is on-time delivery. Those are two key metrics that they're going to review with you during this line review to make sure that you are shipping on time. And a lot of retailers, that doesn't mean I shipped early, and it doesn't mean that you shipped late. It means that you shipped exactly and the product arrived on the date that was on your purchase order. So those are two, I think, also key things that our audience needs to know about today. So just a little addition there. The other thing they're going to talk about, Bruce, also is pricing. So is your price point working? Sometimes price points, if you're at $3.99 right now, due to inflation and other costs, you may creep up over $4. And discuss that with the buyer. Is that affecting your sales? And then also, is your temporary price reduction or TPR pricing working as well? Bruce mentioned promotions. So if you're $3.99 and you're running a TPR at 2 for $4 or 2 for $3 or a multiple, is that a good strategy, and is that working? And you can evaluate those promotions. So those are a couple other things that the buyer's going to want to talk about during your line review meeting.
Yeah, one other thing, Trace, before we push on, when Tracy talks about the scorecard, there are some retailers that if your scorecard performance is below a certain level, you can't even get a meeting.
Correct.
Their spoken or unspoken commentary is, you guys can't even get your act together with what we're currently doing. We're not going to talk about more. Fix this. Tracy, let's press on. How do people prepare?
Yeah, so you're going to want to look at your your data sources. So your syndicated data, your SPINS data, Nielsen, IRI, or actually a lot of retailers, major retailers, have their own portal where you can look at your sales and how you're doing on a per item, per store basis. But make sure you're looking at that and that you're sharing with the retailer. They want to know, and you want to share, how is the retailer doing versus the market? And then also, how is the category performing at this specific retailer? And then third is, how is your brand performing? Those are really the three, key metrics. Again, as Bruce said, the buyer mostly 90% of it cares about how their category is performing and how you're contributing to that performance. Is your brand contributing to the growth of the category? If it is, you're going to have a great meeting and a great conversation. And then you can talk about, as Bruce mentioned, adding more stores or adding more new items. At this time, again, you can share your new innovation and ask for more stores as well as some new products on the shelf.
Bruce,
did I miss anything there?
No, I'd just like to add a couple other things, Tracy. That was really well done. If you have any bad news about your brand or your business, address it right away.
Yeah.
When Tracy and I interviewed buyers from about 12 of the largest retailers in the CPG space, all of them basically said, listen, we have a ton of data. Unless we're just so busy that a miracle happens, we're not going to miss it because we have analysts, we have pricing teams, we have promotional teams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're having an issue, bring it up right away. Talk about what it is, why it happened, and the steps you're taking to fix it and when it will be fixed. Do not hope they won't notice, because they will. Being honest and upfront and bringing this to the table right away will build a ton of credibility. They still might not be happy that there's an issue going on, but they will give you a bit of a check mark for, being a grown-up and putting it on the table and addressing it right away. Tracy?
Yeah, just to add there, I think what comes to mind, Bruce, is you just want to be always open, honest, and transparent with your buyer. Don't try and hide things. Don't think it's going to go away, because it's not. And like Bruce said, they have a lot of data. They know what's going on with your brand, whether you're shipping on time, whether you're shorting them, whether you're not supporting them to the fullest extent. They're going to know all of that. There are no secrets. So don't hide, be transparent.
Yeah, one thing just there, Tracy, based on what you said, another thing to keep in mind, folks, is without being a drama queen here, taking on a small emerging or challenger brand by a buyer, it represents a bit of career risk to them, right? They easily could have kept some tier 2 or 3 brand from some gigantic company that's going to give them trade dollars and ship, blah, blah, blah. So if there's an issue, it's even more important as a smaller brand to do everything Tracy just said. Be honest, address it up front, be easy to do business with, and quickly build the reputation that you're a straight shooter and you solve problems when they pop up. And on the flip side, that you're also nimble enough to take advantage of opportunities when those come to you. And I'll tell you this, you're not going to get any opportunities brought to you by a buyer if you're violating all these other things and hoping that they don't see problems, etc. Tracy, what should be in the line review deck?
So make sure that right up front you have an agenda. You might want to think about sending that agenda in advance, but have one page that says, here's what we're going to talk about today, A, B, C, and D. The biggest thing, advice that we can give to our audience today is make sure that it's brief. So a page on how the category is doing, a page on how your brand is performing, addressing any kind of shipping issues, and then we'll talk in a little bit about your marketing plan and your support plan for the coming year. But make it short, make it brief. Don't come in with a 60-page deck with every data point and distribution point. Make it short, brief, and to the point. That's what the buyer's really looking for.
Yeah, we heard that from every buyer we interviewed about any meeting, not just line reviews, but the perfect sized deck was about 15 pages. And they said, you can have 100 in your appendix, but it should be a discussion and not a lecture, which we're going to cover here in a moment. The other thing to make sure that you keep in this line review is if you know the metrics about how they're going to evaluate your business, get to those, right up front, not ahead of the agenda, but not on page 640 either. If you know this is the hurdle rate, these are the quarterly promos you were expected to run, these are price points, these are their margin requirements, address those. Again, these are not secrets. And Tracy and I have spoken about the importance of having a good sales agent or broker, because as an entrepreneur or small brand, expecting you to run your entire business, supply chain, innovation, create demand with the consumer, and then know the ins and outs of a major retailer, man, that's a tall glass of water. These people can help you, and they know this stuff every day. So your sales agent would be able to say, hey, Bruce, these are the 4 things that we have to hit, and these are the 2 new strategic initiatives that are coming. So it'd be good if you mentioned how you can tie into those as well. working with a good broker or sales agent at these retailers can really give a smaller brand an edge. Okay. Thinking that you can go in and talk about how you're bootstrapping everything, that sounds good in the car. But when you're sitting in the office or on the Zoom call with the buyer, they want confidence that you know how to get things done. They want that confidence, and it's your job to instill it and deliver upon it. Anything to add there, Tracy?
No, I think you covered it perfectly.
Okay, thanks. So the next thing to do is you got to talk about your category. Again, a statement of the obvious because it's the category you're in, but give your view on what's happening in the category, what these trends are. This is a little bit of a time for you to show off, but keeping it brief. Hit on the major things you're seeing. Are there new forms? Are there new benefits? Are there new flavors? Do you now have your product in a more portable package? Is everything turning on the go? Show that you understand what's going on. Retailers have a lot of data, but they also have a ton of brands. They have a ton of suppliers. They have to set up promos. They don't have time to go super deep. You know, they might be a mile wide and an inch deep. You want to be a little bit deeper there. One of the great quotes a retailer buyer gave us during our interviews said, "The perfect meeting is when a brand tells me something I couldn't possibly know." So what are those couple of nuggets that instill faith in your buyer that, man, these guys are bringing insights to the table. And even though they're small, they're tough. And I've got a lot of hope that this is going to work. Tracy?
Yeah, I think just to recap a little bit, Bruce, is I think if you can include any kind of consumer trends, like the consumer is looking for, you know, sustainability or different packaging, and you can also then link that to, and here is my innovation that I'm bringing to you for next year. I think that can be really impactful and meaningful to a buyer. Wouldn't you agree, Bruce, that you link what consumers are asking for, and then your brand is actually delivering that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And again, some of our buyers in the interviews, when we talk about matching your brand to the retailers that you approach for distribution, there's lots of, especially those that are publicly traded, there's lots of good information in their financial statements and reports that they file and 10Ks. Sometimes you'll pick up an interview where they talk about a strategic shift where they're looking for, as Tracy said, you know, sustainable or green initiatives. Show that you're paying attention, man. If those things are being said in the open and you can realistically tie into a corporate strategic initiative, do it.
Absolutely. So another thing you're going to want to include in your presentation is what we call a demand plan. And that demand plan has two components. One is, what is your demand plan for the consumer? What plans do you have in place for the coming year to reach the consumer? Is that increased social media presence? You've hired some influencers. You're going to be doing some some sampling at events, things like that. So how are you reaching the consumer? The buyer wants to know that you are working to pull the product off the shelf. Remember Bruce and I's bumper sticker. It's not about sell in, but it's about sell through. So the buyer's going to want to know, what are you doing from a marketing and a consumer standpoint to build awareness of your brand that will help pull that product off the shelf? The second component is going to be the trade plan, which is, how are you going to support the brand at that specific retailer? So if they have specific programs, demos, temporary price reduction, ads, things like that, that is one way that the buyer is evaluated, and that is how many trade dollars they collect to support their category. So you want to make sure you bring in, you know, don't come in with zero, as Bruce said, come in with a robust trade plan that shows that the buyer, that you are willing to support him as a retailer for your brand. Bruce?
Yep, well done. You know, another bumper sticker that we have is, the only thing that a retailer hates more than a product that doesn't sell is one that doesn't ship. So that gets back to your scorecard. Tracy and I have a lot of bumper stickers. We have a 76 Road to Retail El Dorado, so we can get a lot of bumper stickers on there. So again, when we talk about this meeting, from feedback that we've gotten from retailers and our experience, it should be a discussion and not a lecture. Like Tracy said, no one wants 60 pages. Okay. They want to know the story. They want to know their metrics, but keep it short. And you want to allow plenty of time for questions and dialogue. You want to be, as a smaller brand, you want to be helpful. You want to know what new programs that your buyer might be under the gun to get 10 brands in. And you might not be able to afford all of them, but you want to be one of those phone calls so that they know you're easy to do business with. Even if you say no, you get them a no quickly. It doesn't have to go through 65 levels of command to get a decision. Another thing, which is a bit of a nuance, especially when this is done, I guess if it's virtual, it's the same, but be prepared to start late or be told you have to finish early. So always know in your mind the parts you can skim over, the parts that you can go deep, because a lot of times these retailers, these buyers, they'll get behind, and at some point they have to catch up. And you just might be the meeting that they decide they're going to catch up. Again, we've talked about the importance of having a good broker or sales agent. They should prep you in advance, which helps you create a good agenda. Okay. They know what's important to that retailer right now, a strategic shift. Maybe there's going to be some turnover on the buying desk. They'll be able to tell you who's leaving and who's coming. And Tracy's going to cover some specifics of the things to have in the follow-up. And then lastly, when your retailer asks you questions, because again, you're having a discussion, you're not giving them a lecture. If they come up with questions that are, complex or stuff you really hadn't thought of, don't wing it. Tell them that you'll get back to them, but then get back to them as soon as you can. So write down that question, and you might even, if you don't recap it verbally as you're going out the door, recap it in your follow-up note immediately and say, hey, Bruce, we talked about these 3 things. I owe you answers here. You'll have them by Friday. But a disaster is thinking you have to have an immediate answer when you really don't know what it is. Don't make stuff up. Again, comes back to what we talked about earlier. Maintaining your credibility is paramount. It's paramount in any business, but for a little guy, it's really critical. Tracy?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk now a little bit about some critical dates that you're going to want to discuss with the buyer. So let's assume that you've presented your new items or your innovation for next year. The buyer says, yeah, this looks great. I want to do this. There's some critical pieces of information you need. One is, he's probably not going to give you a yes right there across the desk, but ask, when will you be making your decisions for new items in this category so that I can be prepared? The second question to ask, when is the planogram date? When does the product need to ship to you and be in your DCs? And then when will the product be on the shelf? As Bruce and I have talked in past episodes, that is when the clock starts ticking. Once that product's on the shelf, you're going to have a very short amount of time, 3 to 6 months, to prove yourself that the product that you have launched and put a lot of time and effort into is actually selling. The third thing is, you're going to want to ask for some kind of forecast. How much product do you think you're going to buy, Mr. Buyer? Is that, one case for the shelf, one case for the warehouse, to make sure that you are covered on your inventory. What you don't want to do is be short or have some kind of glitch in your production system that doesn't allow you to ship on time. That is the kiss of death with a buyer. So those are some really key, elements that you really want to make sure that you understand coming out of that meeting. Bruce, did I miss anything?
No, just to add just a couple of things. My counsel always is, when you leave that meeting, if you don't have time to kind of summarize verbally while you're still either on the Zoom or in the room, do it within 24 hours. Get back to the buyer, say, hey, Tracy, thanks for the time. We discussed these things. Recap a couple of the really big points you want to make sure your buyer takes away, and then summarize the follow-up things you owe them with a date that you're going to have the answers, and then hit those dates. Okay. Hit those dates. One last point I just want to make about these key dates Tracy just ticked off. For those of you that might not have been in CPG or dealing with line reviews a lot in the past, asking these questions is not pushy or rude. It's just good business. And these dates and decisions, they're not secrets, right? Because if the buyer takes you, they want to make sure that you can fill the order and hit those dates, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is something a good broker or sales agent will be coaching you on. And then it's really up to them to kind of go behind the curtain and drive these answers. But as the owner of the brand, it's very fair for you to ask these questions. That's not, being rude or pushy or thinking that, asking these questions makes you too forward and the buyer's not going to like you. The relationship with a buyer, sure, we're all human. We'd like it to be, super positive, but most of it's just business, right? So sometimes when people say things like, "Oh, the buyer doesn't like me," that's ridiculous. Okay, the buyer is in a position where he or she is a pure capitalist with goals to hit, and we've gone over them before. But it's sales goals, margin goals, share against a competitor. If your buyer is cranky at you, it's probably because something's going wrong. You're not hitting your number. You're cutting orders. They took something out to put you in and you're underperforming. But these are all opportunities for you to troubleshoot and swoop in and, I don't want to say save the day, but kind of go for a reset. And there are brands that do get discontinued. And, Tracy usually puts on his Grim Reaper suit because no one ever wants to talk about that. Right. But by being on top of these things we're talking about, it won't guarantee that'll never happen to you, but you'll be as prepared as you possibly can be. Tracy, I think we're ready to roll to the big finish.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation, and hopefully our audience has found it very helpful today. And again, continue to follow us, follow this podcast on iTunes, on Spotify, and also you can follow us on our LinkedIn page, Road to Retail. So thanks for joining us today. We will be posting actually this episode next week, right after Labor Day. So look for it on all the channels that I just mentioned. And thanks to our audience for joining us today, and have a great Labor Day weekend.
Good luck out there.